Hello, 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 beautiful people out on the internet. Congratulations on waking up this morning. I know sometimes it can be hard. Hopefully, I've got something here that will make your day. For the past 2 years, I have been working on a mod pack that I have deemed A.C.E.S MC Overhaul. It started as a few mild tweaks and then quickly became something more, something too big to give a simple name, something that kind of overhauls almost every aspect of Minecraft. So what did I do? I did what any sane person would do, and I broke the mod, that is to say, into several pieces and named each one. And today we are going to explore each and every aspect of A.C.E.S MC Overhaul. I really hope you enjoy, and we're going to start with A.C.E.S exploration. Just a quick disclaimer before we even begin. Most of the footage seen in this video is from the alpha version of the mod, that is to say the unreleased version, the one that I use to actually place test stuff as I add things. So if you see things that aren't covered or things that you can't find while playing in the mod, that is because they aren't actually added yet. So just keep your eyes out for new releases of the mod and new videos covering new content. But without further ado, let's hop to. First and foremost, I'd like to give a huge shout out to Mcreator, which is a super convenient modding platform and mod creator for the game of Minecraft. And they just make it so easy. They give you a workspace like you can see here. You import all your textures. You got folders to organize everything, and then plenty of blocks, plenty of things. You can add pretty much anything your heart could think of. It is fairly limited on what you can add redstone wise, but this really helped me get this mod off the ground. I don't plan on using Mcreator forever, but for the size of this, I was absolutely, I totally would have been unable to create this mod in the amount of time that I did if I had to build it from scratch, bare bones. So just a huge shout out, big thank you to Mcreator. I've heard a lot of stuff online talking negatively about platforms like Mcreator or things that make coding easy for you. If you have also heard these negative comments, just don't listen to them. They're really just people trying to hate. And don't get me wrong, writing the code yourself is always the best way to do it. But if you don't know how to write that code, then platforms like Mcreator can make it so much easier for you to get started. Just remember that this is the opening, the entrance, not the end game, and you'll totally be fine. But without further ado, let's get back to the modded content. All right, first and foremost, we're going to be covering the trees. Now, currently there are 3 types of trees in A.C.E.S exploration. The first and most common of which being the maple tree, which grows very tall and has red leaves, which is actually incredibly unique. Our second tree is the eucalyptus tree. The eucalyptus tree is a little bit rarer than the maple tree, spawning in warm environments such as the savannas, whereas the maple trees will spawn pretty much anywhere in almost any form of forest. And last but not least, we have our willow tree, which spawns in swampy and other marshy-like areas. You can take a look at these woods back here in the wood pallets. Now, these woods are fully integrated, meaning you can craft pretty much anything you can think of with these woods. The only thing that you cannot craft with them is signs and all types of signs and boats, because unfortunately those 2 things are not super well supported by Mcreator. Not to say it's impossible, just to say it's a little bit tricky, and I haven't had the time to work it out yet. So this is our maple wood. It's got a nice honey looking texture. Moving right along to the eucalyptus texture. Now this is a lighter color than the cherry, but still a pink texture. Moving right along, we have our first green tinted wood. It's more of a mint, and this might actually go even lighter shades of green in the future. Ooh, did I scare you? Future Ace here. Between the time that I started recording and the time that I finished recording, that actually added a whole nother type of wood, which is, you can see right behind me, palm wood. So I got these beautiful palm tree saplings. It looks like my bounty box is a bit small. Maybe I should make that bigger. But you can see the palm wood right here. If we get ourselves an axe, we should easily be able to strip these woods. We'll fix that. That will work when it is launched. But then we've got, you can see I chose to go for the black or dark palm. I believe it's called black palm. I think it just looks a little bit better, especially in this log here. I think it looks really good. And who knows, maybe eventually I'll put normal palm wood or a different type of palm wood. So, you know, when you find the trees, you can't really tell which type it is until you cut it down. And while we're on the topic of wood, there is now bark. So whenever you strip a tree, you will get a specific type of bark related to that tree. The only one I haven't added yet is cherry, but it'll be here just around the corner. And of course, once you've stripped a piece of oak or, you know, any wood log, you can put that bark back on. Bark can also be used to craft paper and a few other things as well. A.C.E.S Exploration also adds several new blocks, my favorite of which being the new kelp brick. Now, kelp bricks are actually not only just, you know, a variation of kelp, but also incredibly unique as they are the only block that floats. So if you place kelp bricks down here in the water, you'll notice that after just a little bit, they start to float up to the surface. So if you have an ocean base or an ocean build, you no longer have to build giant pillars of things out in the ocean and then tear them all down. Just place a kelp brick at the bottom, let it float up, and then you can build your base on top of it. There's also two different types of stone. The first one being marble. Now, marble is designed to mirror basalt from the Nether, except it spawns in the overworld. It doesn't actually spawn in big towers like basalt does. It just has similar properties and similar decoration blocks, such as polished marble and smooth marble. Over here we have redstone, to be confused with redstone. Redstone spawns in Badlands biomes. You know, anywhere you can find terracotta, you have a chance of finding big patches of redstone. Now, these are fully implemented just like normal stone, so anything you would see with normal stone, you can also see with redstone. We also have two different types of tuff here. We have a tuff pillar and a polished tuff. This is so that it mirrors some of the other granites, and I think actually what I did here is have it mirror quartz. But with all the new tuff blocks coming in 1.21, these actually might get removed. It's all a wait and see. And while that is pretty much all the basics of A.C.E.S Exploration, there is also five new entities, including a boss, a mini boss, and a whole new biome. First and foremost here we have the Geode Golem, which spawn exclusively on amethyst blocks in dripstone caves. So if you're listening, that basically means they only spawn in geodes that also have spawned in a dripstone cave biome. Now, their custom drop that these guys have that's really special is, of course, the geode itself. The texture here isn't quite finished, but this geode will actually act like a bookshelf. You can place it next to your enchanting tables to increase the power of your enchants. Our next entity is pretty simple. It is the crab. Just a little crab guy walking around on the beach. You can see plenty of them actually that have spawned naturally, just kind of all over the place. Now, the crab is important because it actually unlocks our first boss, a boss called the king crab. Now, when you kill these crabs, you can get not only crab meat, but crab shell. And then when you craft that crab shell together, you can make a crab statue, which is used to summon the king crab. Go to any beach or ocean biome, place yourself down a chiseled sandstone, and then put a crab on top. Click that crab with a heart of the sea. Also notice the eyes aren't here for the crab statue. Click that crab with a heart of the sea, and you will summon in the king crab. Now, the king crab is meant to be the first boss that you fight before the wither, before the ender dragon, of course, and you're supposed to fight it in the overworld. I've actually just noticed there seems to be a slight texture issue with parts of the legs, but you know, that's a pretty easy fix. Now, when you fight this guy, every time you hit him, he has a chance of spawning in backup, just like that right there. Now, unlike normal crabs, which won't attack you while you're walking around unless you hit them, of course, the crabs that he spawns are always hostile, meaning they will instantly try and attack you and kill you. And the amount of crabs that he spawns and the amount of damage he does is all dependent on difficulty. So the higher the difficulty, the more loot and the tougher the fight. But once you kill the king crab, if you're in survival mode, you get plenty of loot, but here in creative, we don't get anything. The king crab actually has 3 unique drops, the first of which being a fractured king crab shell. Now, this is all used for crafting the king crab trophy, which is, you know, of course, the king crab shell itself. And when you place that down, you get yourself a nice little achievement. This is an exact replica of the shell that he wears while you're fighting him. You can also, of course, get the Hermit Helmet, which is a piece of awesome armor. When you put that on your head, it will actually give you a health boost up to 2. It looks like I'm taking damage, but what that's actually doing is healing me up. You'll notice I actually have extra hearts. Woo! Woo, get out of here! Ah! Ah! All right, sorry about that. Almost died. These crabs are a menace. But I'm sure you noticed that you actually end up getting more health. If I had some food to eat, you shall see there that it actually gives you 4 extra hearts. Now, this is only when you're away from companions. So if you have any pets, such as dogs, wolves, or cats, I guess, if you have cats, they'll also count as companions, and you won't get the health boost. This guy scared me. I thought he was going to kill me. And then last but not least, you have the claw. The claw is a special type of sword which causes bleed damage. Now, I believe by default does 9 attack damage. You can see right there. I think that's the equivalent of a diamond sword, but on an after effect, it does about 3 additional hearts, or I should say 3 additional hit points, so 1.5 additional hearts of bleed damage over time. Now, the remaining mobs are actually all spiders, and they all spawn in the new biome, which is the spider den. So I'm all up here in ghost mode, and we've got ourselves a lovely spider den biome below us. So as soon as we get down there, we can do game mode creative. And you can see my bug eyes. Now, these actually give me night vision and are night vision goggles and are actually related to the spider den, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. So the spider den can only spawn different types of spiders. So as you can see here, we've got some cave spiders, and as you may have seen, or here we have a giant spider, which is one of our first new mobs. And you may have noticed that none of our mobs actually have animations. That's just because I haven't gotten around to building them, or building the it's technically building, I guess. I don't know, making the animations yet. So nothing has animations, but that will come in the near future. So you can see pretty much all the spiders. The ground here is made out of tuff, and it has its own unique ore that only spawns here, the sack cluster. Now, these sack clusters are pretty cool and contain another type of spider, the spiderling. And whenever you destroy these sack clusters, you have a chance of spawning in 1 or more of these little spiderlings, and I personally think that they're really, really cool. They don't grow up into any of the other spiders, although it could be kind of cool if they randomly grew into the different types of spiders, huh? Maybe we'll see that in the near future. Now, if you have Silk Touch, you can actually get these sack clusters, and you can also get egg sacs from them when you destroy them in survival mode. Here in creative, you don't get them, but you get these little grenades, and of course when you throw them, they spawn in spiderlings, which, yeah, they have a chance, of course, to spawn in 1 or more spiderlings. So you can throw these at your buddies, maybe load up some dispensers with them and really prank them. I think that would be pretty funny. But I think the best part about this little shall we say spider den, it is a spider den. The spider den is definitely the custom structure that spawns here, and that is the web. So if we go back into spectator mode here, there we go, then you may notice some spiders on the horizon. Now, there's actually 2 webs here. Now, these are pretty cool. This is the Elder Spider. Now, these are similar to the Elder Guardian in that they are a mini boss style mob, and when you get too close, they give you blindness, which I think is absolutely terrifying. Imagine wandering the spider den, fighting some spiders, and all of a sudden, you just get too close, and you can't see anything. I think that would be absolutely terrifying. So these are definitely going to be a pretty tricky structure to find. But once you find them, you can actually get a custom drop, which is the Elder Spider Eye. And with that Elder Spider Eye, you can make yourself a pair of night vision goggles, and suddenly it's going to be a whole lot easier to try and find these spiders, because and the webs can spawn in fragments like this or as full webs. I think it's really cool, very dynamic. And you can see that the night vision you get from this actually cures the blindness as well. Now these guys are really cool. They don't have any AI or any AI. They don't have any movement, so they're kind of blind actually, considering they give you night vision. It's weird. So they won't move. They'll pretty much sit here, summon in spiders around them, and you have to fight them. That's it'd be kind of overpowered if they could chase you down and you had blindness. But anyways, you can see there's actually two of them here. If we go over here to this web, it might have generated as a full structure. Let's see. Okay, it generated as a partial structure as well, about a half structure into the side of a mine shaft. Now, can you imagine exploring this mine shaft, coming across this big spider web? Yeah, I think I'd freak out personally. Alrighty, that covers pretty much everything in A.C.E.S exploration, so we're gonna move right on ahead to A.C.E.S Deco. And one of the first things we have with A.C.E.S Deco is one of my absolute favorite things, which are the blinds. So you can actually, open and close these blinds. They come in all wood types. I know we don't have other things up here like the cherry blinds or the no, there's the bamboo blinds. I know we don't have the cherry blinds, but we have those as well as any modded woods like the ones that you saw earlier. Another really cool part of, or feature of the deco, is that we now have chiseled or mosaic woods. Now, bamboo mosaic is where I got this inspiration, but it's the only one that has a mosaic. So now all of the other wood types also have a mosaic as well. Keeping with the wood theme, we have hedges. Now, hedges are pretty much just walls, but for leaves. So all the different leaf types now have their own wall variant, and they're called hedges. We've also got these lovely things, which you may recognize, but you're not going to want to step near them because not only are they incredibly annoying, which will probably get changed later. If I was in survival mode, they'd actually hurt you because these are electric bars. But the electric bars aren't the only cool thing here, because this is soft concrete. Now, you basically take any form of concrete powder, you mix that with some sugar, and you get yourself some soft concrete, which does not harden when you expose it to water. I got this inspired by actual real life concrete. This was during the French Revolution, revolters or revolutionists, I don't know what they called themselves. They would actually mix the concrete that people were, building the walls out of and whatnot with sugar, and just fill it with a ton of sugar, and they wouldn't harden, so that they, had a harder time, building new buildings. And I thought, hey, why not put that into Minecraft? These are the new corners and halves. Now, I really can't show you just how many different types of halves and corners and whatnot there are, because guys and girls, there are a lot of them, like an absolute ton. So this is just a couple of them, and I really love the dynamic shapes and whatnot that you can make with them. While we're on the subject of decorations, I thought it might be a little bit easier just to show you this, which is the standard set of decoration blocks in the game. Basically anything that has a slab or a stair variant, you can see right here before you. And this right here is my mod pack. A complete a wall of pretty much any slab, stair, and anything that you can imagine. Some of my favorites over here being the bricks, pretty much anything that has the word brick in it. I went ahead and, which these do work now, I went ahead and gave a full suite, and the reason they all have fences is actually because of this. This right here is actually the only vanilla fence in this entire row, so I decided to give them all fences. And there's a couple chiseled ones. I think these ones turned out really good. So this one, it's kind of hard to see, but I think it looks like a hammer. It's pretty simple, and I like it. These ones really stand out a lot. So having some that are a little bit more simple, I think look just a little bit better. Right here, I don't know. Leave a comment down below if you recognize what creature this is supposed to be a chiseling of. But moving on from the bricks, there's just an absolute ton. Pretty much anything with color, all the woods, including some of the logs and wood variants, all have not only a full suite of slabs, stairs, corners, halves, and most of them even have walls. So this is probably honestly where I've spent the majority of the time in this mod pack. This and maybe maybe two other areas. And it's one of my favorite things, and something I actually forgot to talk about in that last clip is all the new cut variants. So of course, you know, the standard cut copper stairs and whatnot, these are already in the game except for the corners and the halves, but I actually added cut versions of all the other types of ore as well. I'm not totally sold on their textures, and I actually made these textures before they were updated, so the gold ones and the diamond ones need a texture update, but yeah, they're here and they will get fixed up eventually. This is the bathtub, and it's kind of like a cauldron. If you put some water here below it, you can hit the faucet. Never mind. So let me just try that again. There we go. And then we should be able to, if you click down here, nothing happens, but if you click on the faucet, it fills up with water. And then if you shift click on either part, either down here or up here, it will drain itself. And when you break it, it works properly now. This actually surprisingly enough, it took like a decent amount of time because you got to do it in like every direction, and it's like 2 blocks and you have to link them. Oh gosh, it's anyways, you can also, when you fill it, you can click on it with buckets and infinitely get water from it. Because honestly, like, I thought about it and it could drain it, but then you'd just click it and you'd fill it right back up again because it doesn't consume the water anyways, and you don't even need a full trough like this. It can be just a single piece like that, and it will never go away. So it's pretty nice. And the rest of the decoration blocks are pretty much right here. First up is the cobbled paths, which, you know, you place it down and it will just orient itself randomly. You make this with just pretty much a full grid of buttons. Right here is ivory. You can make this in the stone cutter with bone blocks, or with a few other recipes that are exclusive to my mod that we'll get to in a bit. This is a glass door. You need silk touch in order to break this, and of course I'm creative, so it's not going to break anyways. But yeah, glass door, and of course, wow, that's pretty loud. I should probably turn that down. But a doorbell, and you can make that with a button and note block and something. I'm not entirely sure. I can't entirely remember. But then last over here is our paper pane, which is pretty much just like a glass pane, but made of paper. I think it requires sticks for crafting as well, and they're inspired by the little Japanese paper walls that you see in, I mean, Japanese places. I would say right here at the end of the second segment, which is A.C.E.S Decorations, is a good chance to talk about the creative menu. When you go into creative, you not only have your standard set of tabs, but if you can tab over here, and you have a whole special set of tabs as well. So when you click on it, A.C.E.S Decoration, these are the blocks and items we have just covered. So yeah, as you can see, that's quite a lot. And we still have quite a lot to go, but some of these aren't nearly as vast as the ones we've covered thus far. So worry not. Hopefully this video isn't too long. And I think the next topic to talk about is probably A.C.E.S Illumination, which is probably, I don't know, it's probably not my favorite area, but it is close. I did a lot of work in here. You can see we've got colored glow stones as well as colored redstone lamps, and I went ahead and set up a little redstone clock that's got them flashing in a little rainbow, so if you look closely, and it's already really bright around here, but you can watch it, woo, going a little rainbow. But you've also got these little desk lamps, so when you look in there, you've actually got the lantern texture, which I think is really cool. So it's like it's literally just like a lantern with you know, fabric around it. And then up here we've got colored torches, of course, as well as light bulbs down below. So if we flip this lever here, you can see those light bulbs turn on. And then the light fixtures here also turn on and off. I like these textures as well. So
So cool. And then up here you have the cage lights, and these ones honestly might be the coolest because when you turn them on, they've got this glowing aura effect around them because of the cage. So yeah, they're pretty cool. You turn them on and off. You have copper ones and aluminum ones. The aluminum ones down here, yeah, aluminum's another aura in the mod. And up here you have copper. Now they totally age, and you can wax them and scrape them and everything. They're fully integrated. They're actually a huge part of all the blocks I've added. I think in total there's over 100 of these little copper lights because you have to add a different block for the on state and one for the off state. And then you hide the one for the on state. It's crazy. So those were like a lot of work, but they're really freaking cool. I hope you enjoy them. And I got so distracted talking about those, I totally forgot to mention these little colored end rods, which also were actually quite a lot of work because I forgot that end rods actually have textures and particle textures. That's what I'm trying to say. Particle textures. So I had to recolor by hand, pixel by pixel, each of these particle textures as they got like smaller and smaller, and it took me a good couple of hours, but it was totally worth it because they look awesome. Which brings us to A.C.E.S Pantry. A.C.E.S Pantry is pretty much exactly what you'd think it is. We have 2 custom blocks. We're gonna start over here with the ice box. Now the ice box, you pop some water in there and it turns into ice in a bucket. Take that bucket out, get some more water, get yourself some more ice. And then slowly you can craft this ice into packed ice. Some might say this is overpowered. Some might say this is arduously slow. What do you think? All right, and our next block here is the churn. You know what they say? No churn, no jern. Or no burn. No churn, no burn. But the churn has 2 different modes, a butter mode and a cheese mode. You press this button and it will switch between them. You press churn to turn your milk into cheese. Or if you want to switch modes, now of course these pieces of cheese can be used to craft the cheese wheel, which you can place down and eventually you'll be able to eat it like a cake, but right now that's not an option. Hopefully that's something you can get in the near future. Next up is the knife. Now the knife does do more damage and is a little bit of a weapon, but is mostly used for cutting things. For example, you get yourself some pork chops and make yourself some bacon. That bacon you can then cook and then chop up to make bacon bits. You can also now, when you kill squid, get their tentacles and cook them up into calamari, or slice up your bread into sliced bread. Probably the greatest thing added to the game ever. And then make it into toast, and then jelly your toast up with these jams that I forgot to talk about because I have jars. These are mashed potatoes, and of course here we have French fries. This is another invention of the knife. You chop up some baked potatoes, you get yourself some fries. You can then mix your fries with ketchup, which is another invention of the jar. And then, of course, down here, we have a fried egg, because, like, why is this not in the game already? Like, literally, egg, furnace, fried egg, right? Like, why? Okay, whatever. And then, of course, the BLT sandwich. Now, this is just one sandwich. I want to add a lot more than just this, but these textures, like, they're kind of a lot of work. I really like how this turned out, so let me know what you think. We're going to add a lot more sandwiches. What sandwiches and what food would you like to see added to the game? Because this is something that's really kind of niche, and you can do almost whatever. I try to mix things up, keep it interesting, make sure it's not normal. Did I talk about these things? Hang on, wait a minute. Well, interlude. This is goat. You can cook that up. Of course, once again, why is this not in the game? You can get sheep meat, the mutton, but you can't get goat. Why? Whatever. And then this is monster jerky, which is one of my favorite additions. Monster jerky is rotten flesh. You put that in the smoker. It has to be a smoker, cannot be a furnace. But then when you eat it, you actually get the antidote effect, as you can see up there on my screen. If I can figure out, how do you open the effect screen? So there it is, antidote. In fact, I'm used to Bedrock, people. Leave me alone. I'm not a Java player. Fun fact, on Bedrock, you can actually craft in your inventory in creative. I don't know why this does not exist on Java. I don't like it. Give me crafting table here, please. Anyways, back to the antidote. The antidote will cure, I think, poison and venom, which is another type of negative ailment that's in the game. And last but certainly not least, we have our juices down here. And of course, the bottle of milk, which does the same thing that a regular thing of milk does, but in bottle form. And then our juices, which are pretty sweet. Now, these are made of sugar and fruit and veggie, and there's actually two different types of juice. You have a fruit juice and vegetable juice. So when you drink your fruit juice, your apple juice, you get a little bit of swiftness and haste just for a few seconds. But when you drink a veggie juice, beetroot, it makes you strong, and you get a little bit of regen and just a little bit of extra strength. I think it's strength. So you have 2 of each. And then pumpkin juice, as we all know from the Harry Potter franchise, is extra powerful. So when you drink the pumpkin juice, it gives you all of them for just a little bit less amount of time. Which I think is pretty cool. Let me know what other type of juices you want to see and what other type of vegetables and crops we can add, because next up is A.C.E.S Agriculture. A.C.E.S Agriculture. And we've got a lot of crops. The first one here is rice. I need to be in survival to do to play this game. So you break it and you can get up to a ton of rice. Rice is pretty cool, but when you eat it, it doesn't give you much in the means of chicken wings down there. This is lettuce. You can get yourself a head of lettuce when you break these, and there's currently a bug where you can't break things with head of lettuce, but worry not, we will fix. So you can get yourself heads of lettuce, plant those back down. This here is strawberries. Break yourself some strawberries. And this, if you look closely, is not actually farmland. This is fertilized farmland. So you can actually craft this using rotten flesh and bone meal and dirt. And it's not tramplable. It doesn't require water. It's basically just the best when you're planting crops. So craft this up. You're going to need to kill a lot of skeletons and zombies. Right here, we've got our double tall crops. We've got corn. You can break them you can break them from the top. You can break them from the bottom. Doesn't matter. You get corn kernels, just a little bit, and some ears of corn. You can replant the corn right there. And then right here, you've got tomatoes. You can break them from the bottom. You can break them from the top. Doesn't really matter. And then replant them like that. Pretty cool, pretty cool. I think I have the tick rate increase, so yeah, things grow back much faster in this game. Quick pause just to avoid confusion. I said grow back faster in this game. I meant to say in this world. I have the world tick speed increase. It's not an overall tick speed increase that is done from the mod. So if you want to mess with the tick speed, that's your business. And with the strawberries, if you're wondering where are the strawberry seeds, you can craft them up just like this. Strawberries are pretty cool because you can actually get moldy strawberries when you break them. Moldy strawberries are pretty much just like poisonous potatoes, which is to say they're useless and they make you sick, so don't eat them. And last but certainly not least, back here we have our blueberries. Now these grow in the taiga just like the sweet berries do. You can just find them out there when you're walking around, grab them, eat them up. They're very delicious. So naturally, our next topic is going to be A.C.E.S ore, because Earth. So the ores, there's actually a bunch of them. I think I added 10 different ores. Over here we have aluminum, as I mentioned earlier. Oh my god, earlier. Oh my gosh. So you get regular aluminum ore, deep slate ore, and of course the raw block, the regular block, and then there's cut blocks for each of these as well, as I mentioned in the decoration section over there. I believe this is the cut 10 texture, so this should go here. But then, of course, this makes this tin. This makes this nickel. These are all copper tier ores, meaning they're basically decorative ores, and they do anything copper can do, except for the cage lights, which is only aluminum, but the nickel ones and the tin ones will come soon. They're just a huge pain and a lot of work to put those cage lights together, so I wanted a little bit of a break. Thank you for your mercy. Over here we have lead and silver and tungsten. These are all iron tier ores. If you don't know what these are actually the iron tier bars, the lead bars, the silver bars, and tungsten bars. They also have doors. So as you can see, the lead one pretty much mirrors the iron door exactly. It's just big and hulky and blockadey, but it's more dark and dark paleted, so I thought it'd work better in some more darker dungeons instead of those bright iron doors. And the trapdoor looks the same, but the silver one is very modern. It's meant to look for like a modern build, like sliding glass doors almost, although it doesn't slide, but something very fancy. And then the tungsten one is meant to be for like a garden or locked greenhouse, maybe covered in ivy, I guess. I don't know. Something with just like a more natural feel to it. If you're thinking this texture looks a bit funky, it's because it's at twice resolution. I was experimenting with some stuff, but I need to go back. Just haven't fixed the texture. That will get fixed before this release is out, so keep an eye out for it. Tell me if you like the new texture. Over here we have cobalt and mithril. These are gold tier ores, meaning they're kind of magic-y ores, but also they just have special properties, and I'm trying to give each of them a special reason to exist, the same reason gold kind of exists for special reasons in the Nether. And hopefully you'll see what I'm talking about when you're playing around. This is platinum and this is titanium. These are metallic diamond tier ores, and there's actually going to be a ruby or gem tier diamond tier ore coming as well, so that there's 2 of each. I think that kind of fits well. And then there's also, 4 decorative, 4 iron tier, 3 magic tier, and then 4 of the top tier. Maybe I should add another magic tier. I don't know. We'll see. Well, I guess lapis is technically the magic tier. And next up is Ace's critters, but first we gotta cover the critters that ain't critters. First up is this dripstone hamster. Now hamsters are just part of this mod. Get used to it. This here though is a dripstone hamster, and I'm just seeing the bounding box. It looks right. Looks about right. This is supposed to spawn down in dripstone cave biomes, just on dripstone blocks. I haven't really found any in my playtesting, so it might not be spawning quite properly, but that is the goal, that they just spawn down there as fossilized hamsters. This is because there are also hamsters that spawn in lush caves, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. This is the glass frog. Now we're covering this because frogs are already part of the game, and so is how you get this. If you submerge a frog in powdered snow, which we can get some right here. Boom. It turns into a glass frog. You can see that they will take damage, move around. So I think one of the coolest things about the glass frogs, other than the fact that they give off a little bit of light, is the fact that this is inspired by a real life idea. There are a species of frog, when the temperatures drop to a certain point, they pull all of their blood into their heart, which is that little square you can see in the center there, and pretty much go into stasis and become glass frogs. You can see right through their body, and they pretty much just freeze. And then when the temperatures rise, their blood moves back out and they can walk around. Now, I haven't added any way to de-thaw these guys yet, but keep an eye out for it in the future. You can also place these guys on lily pads, and they look really, really cute. Last but not least is the bottle of glowing hamster tears. Now, this is actually a bottle that you can place down, and this texture is probably going to change up just a little bit because I'm not super happy with it. It does do these weird glitchy things, but my goal is to hopefully make it so that eventually you can place down all bottles in this way. But these glowing hamster tears actually come from the lush hamster, which is the parody to the dripstone hamster. These guys spawn in the lush cave biomes, and as you can see, they glow on the undersides a little bit. I really love how these guys look, because when you're walking around the lush caves, they really do blend in quite well. But if you kill them, you actually get glowing hamster tears. And if you kill regular hamsters, you just get hamster tears. But you can craft these glowing hamster tears into a bottle of glowing hamster tears that will increase your enchanting power. So don't kill hamsters, but if you want to kill the glowing ones, then I guess you could. I guess you could do that, but I'm not telling you to. Which brings us right on to the critters part of the critters. First up is the doe here. Yeah, it worked. White-tailed doe here. Now, these are technically separate from the white-tailed buck. Oop, that's the doe. The bucks here, which spawn with antlers, and this antler is actually probably going to change. I think it's pretty cool the way this looks, but it's causing a lot of problems. And I think I found a way to make them still look really cool and work a lot better for my future plans. But the cool thing is the doe here is a completely passive mob, but the buck, when you attack it, will attack you back. He'll buck you with those horns, and they don't feel good, I'll say that much. Our next little critter is our squirrel friend here. Now, the squirrels are pretty quick. As you can see, they run around the forest with remarkable ease, and the squirrels are probably the ones, at least for me, where I noticed that they don't have animation, where none of the critters have any sort of animations whatsoever the most, because it really is pretty awkward watching them dart around without moving at all. So I really do need to start working on animations for them, but it's gonna come soon enough. I figured, you know, functionality over visuals for the start. Once everything's working well and in a good playable state, and everything that's really cool and needs to be in the game is in the game, then we'll work on how it all looks. But I promise you, it is coming in the near future. One of the coolest parts about our squirrel friends is that they actually can drop squirrel brains, and when you eat them, they're kind of like mini golden apples. They give you just a little bit of regeneration and strength, because I've always heard, I'm from Kentucky, y'all, and I've always heard that eating them squirrel brains is really good for you. Oh, check this out. We came across some wild strawberries. This is actually how you find strawberries. It's the same as pumpkins. You just have to find patches of wild strawberries, which I do sometimes. I mean, they're really tiny strawberries, and you wouldn't want to eat them because, you know, people are nasty and cities are polluted, but I find them out here in Kentucky. You find them out there. I think now is also a good time to say that most of these creatures have meats. In fact, let's just go through them real quick. So far we've covered squirrels have meat, raw squirrel, cooked meat. Deer, venison, check, raw and cooked. We've also covered crab, raw crab, cooked crab meat. So I think it's only natural to move on to ducks, which intentionally mirror the chickens pretty much exactly, and eventually will also spawn and poop out little duck eggs while they roam. Ducks have meat, raw duck, cooked duck. Our next two critters live in the swamp, and the first one is the flamingo. Now, the flamingos don't have much use yet, but I'm hoping to give them a pretty big use here in the near future. But for now, you can just enjoy how much they contrast their surrounding environment. I think this is a much needed add to the swamps in general. Like, come on, Mojang, look how good they look in here. And our next addition is the beaver, which are a pretty big addition to the game. I don't know why I got this fascination with beaver, but when you kill them, you can get beaver tooth, which is right here, and then the beaver tooth can be crafted into the beaver axe. And the beaver axe is pretty cool because if I believe I have to be in survival mode, but if I go into survival mode and come to chop down this tree here, it'll chop down pretty much infinite logs in a vertical limit. It only chops limit upwards, so if you have one of those big 2x2 trees, it doesn't work. For all of them, it just does the one thing. And if you have a mutant tree, it doesn't chop the whole thing down. It just chops down the wood in a vertical limit. But holy, the beaver axe is powerful, but them beaver teeth are not very common. However, if you want to increase your beaver teeth drops, you can sacrifice a beaver tooth to create the beaver hide hat. In fact, there is also a rabbit hat and a squirrel hat. For anything that has a special rare drop, the squirrel hat, as you can see, gives you a little squirrel tail out the back, of course. And the rabbit hat gives you some big pointy ears. And the beaver hat gives you, of course, a big tail as well. Big old beaver tail hanging out the back. Now the beaver hat will increase your tooth drops as well as some other drops that we are about to discuss. The rabbit hide will increase your rabbit foot drops. and your squirrel hide hats will increase your squirrel brains drops. The other ever foreshadowed drop from the beaver is the beaver tail, aka the Godsmack. Now this thing is powerful. You do not want to get hit with the beaver tail, because if you get hit with the beaver tail, you're not gonna stay close by. This thing's got knockback times 1,000. It is so fun to hit things with this beaver tail, but let me tell you, it is not common. I think it's at least 1 in 1,000. Let me say that, at least 1 in 1,000, maybe rarer. I can't remember. Now seems like a good time to cover the normal types of hamsters in the game, which are the black hamster, the silver hamster, and the ginger hamster. Now each of these hamsters has they all spawn in a variety of different biomes, but each one has a higher chance of spawning in specific biomes. For example, I believe the black one spawns higher in the dark forest. I believe the ginger one spawns higher in the flower forest. And I believe the silver one spawns higher in the birch forest. I don't remember any of these. You're just gonna have to figure it out on your own. But you can go and find these hamsters out in the wild. They're super adorable. And if you take a bunch of seeds and craft them together, you can get yourself some hamster food and actually tame yourself some hamsters as well. Now these guys will follow you around, of course, but I don't believe they will sit or do anything else, or I think they don't attack. You know what? Let's see. No. Next up is the jellyfish. Now, the jellyfish would usually spawn only in oceans much deeper than this. Of course, I've spawned them in myself. The jellyfish is pretty cool because when you kill them, they give you jelly. And when you touch them, they, of course, zap you. So be careful when you're getting too close to them. Now, I haven't actually been able to find any jellyfish myself. So if you find jellyfish spawned actually out in the world, please let me know. Because that very well could be a bug. They also don't seem to be moving, right? Like, so I feel like something's messed up with them. But they do give you jelly, and then you can dry that out to get dried jelly, and then dried jelly can actually be burned up again as another fuel. So it's like a dried kelp situation, but much weaker and not quite as good. Which brings us to our last set of critters, which is our penguins. Now these here are emperor penguins. You can tame these guys with fish, but they don't really do anything. They don't protect you, and they don't attack. They're just decorative, and you can't even make them sit. They are just, docile to you, and they like you now. Woo! Yay! And you'll also be able to breed them once you tame them, although that's not set up yet, although coming in the near future. But if you're listening closely, you'll notice I said set of penguins because we also have Galapagos penguins, which are smaller penguins. These ones spawn out on the stony shores and other island-esque type areas, more watery vibes, kind of because they're, found commonly on the Galapagos Islands, so it just kind of makes sense. Now, penguins are pretty cool because they drop blubber. Blubber is a fuel. It's pretty much the same as a dried kelp block, except it can also be used to craft lanterns and torches, and I believe even campfires, so blubber is pretty useful. And in true YouTuber fashion, I of course saved the best for last, which is the elephants, which I also teased at the beginning. Gosh, I love these guys so much. I think they just turned out so well. They're such a big texture. I was really nervous to go for it, but they're very cool. Let me show you all about these guys. Now, these are technically African elephants, and I eventually want to add Asian elephants that are a bit smaller and spawn in jungles. Now, these big African elephants, you can actually take them, and if you hit them with an axe, you'll chop off one of their tusks, and you get that tusk. And if you hit them again, ooh, did I get them? Did I get them? It chops off both their tusks. So you can see this is now a tuskless elephant. And I've got the tusks right here. So these tusks are going to be rare because you can only get 2 per elephant. That's the only way to get them. And you can craft them into a decent amount of bone meal. But the best part about these tusks is the fact that you can craft them. I need more. You can craft them into ivory. Which is the block you can get from crafting bone in a stone cutter. This is, of course, cruel, and when you chop off the elephant's tusk, it now does less damage to enemies it attacks, and it will, of course, protect you by attacking all the hostile mobs around it. So never tusk an elephant. This is all just for demonstration purposes, but they'll drop elephant pelts and raw elephant upon dying as well. Watch the elephant take out the spider. the spider evades them. For now. But yeah, that's the end of Ace's critters. Aren't those elephants just so cool? Eventually I want to make it so that you can ride them, but the saddles are a bit small, so we need to make bigger saddles, such as elephant saddles, but we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. We need to still cover one of the biggest things that I've done so far, which is A.C.E.S Nether. Now this is definitely going to be best if we go biome by biome, so let's just dive right in. Here we are in the wasteland. It feels so good to be back. Oh, all right. That hopefully won't happen again. Now, A.C.E.S Nether is actually one of the largest overhauls in the game. I think probably right up there with A.C.E.S Decoration, A.C.E.S Exploration, and A.C.E.S Illumination. So it's a final big one that we got to get off. So let's move biome by biome and just take a look at all the stuff that gets added. First and foremost is the Nether Wastes biome. Now, the Nether Waste biome are probably the one you guys are most familiar with, and this biome sees 2 new crops, 1 new entity, and 1 new block with this mod. The new block here is something I think that the Nether has been missing for a while, and that is its own type of sand. This sand is called heat sand, as you can probably guess by the name. If I put my game mode over into survival and hop up on it, I'm gonna start taking damage. Even if I crouch, you'll notice that doesn't have any effect whatsoever. The only way to prevent this damage from the heat sand here is with a pair of Frostwalker boots. So you can see I've got myself a pair of titanium boots, and those have got themselves some Frostwalker, and when I step on the heat sand, it no longer burns me. The creature is something that I think the Nether has been also lacking for a while, which is its own type of dog. These are waste mongrels. So these waste mongrels obviously spawn in the Nether wastes. The cool thing about these is if you actually bring them to the overworld, they will hunt down wolves and attack them. Now, if I spawn some wolves here, you can see this happening. They all kind of go nuts and start chasing down the wolf. And once it dies, they actually turn it into a waste mongrel. So if you get yourself a dog or a wolf farm and then have, 1 or 2 waste mongrels nearby, you can actually convert those dogs into waste mongrels and kind of farm the waste mongrels. Now, the dogs do a good job of fighting back, but you can see they're easily outnumbered. When these dogs die, they drop what is called wasted flesh, which pretty much makes them the zombies of the Nether. Or I guess zombie pigmen would be the zombies of the Nether. So they're just unique. Now this wasted flesh is pretty cool. When you eat it, it'll give you a special effect over there, as you can see, called boiling. And you do not want this effect. This is another negative effect. The idea behind this effect is that this wasted flesh is incredibly hot, temperature-wise, not spice-wise. And when you eat it, your insides actually begin to boil. And that is what is causing the increased damage from the boiling effect. Now, if you have any other ideas as to what to use this wasted flesh for, please let me know. I think it's a pretty interesting idea that is not super implemented, or at least implemented to its maximum potential. Which brings us to the final section of the Nether Waste additions, which is the crops, or I guess I should say plants or flowers, as none of them are technically crops. Right here we have ourselves a fire lily. These will set you on fire when you step inside of them. They're really highly volatile. We come right over here and place some down. I can actually switch my game mode into survival, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So as you can see, we've got our flowers here, and I've got my Frostwalker 2 boots on, and when I step into the lily, it does absolutely nothing to protect me. There's literally no way to prevent yourself from catching on fire when colliding with these. In fact, any form of touch whatsoever will set you on fire. If I even go so far as to break this, it will set me on fire. If I throw... Oh, whoops. All right, we're back. If I throw an item at it, it will catch on fire and burn up. These things are highly volatile. And perhaps my favorite crop is the Hellthorn vines. Now, these grow on the roof of the Nether wastes, and all of them will start as just a single piece of Hellthorn vine and grow over time. That makes it so that when you first enter the Nether, these Hellthorn vines are actually really rare and pretty hard to get your hands on, because you got to climb all the way up to the Nether ceiling to find them. At least you usually do. I got kind of lucky, and you can see here there's actually a few right over here. But once again,
they spawn in as just the first little versions. So you have to wait for the rest of it to grow before you can actually get any hellthorn vines. However, I just increased the random tick speed, and once they start growing, you'll see they'll actually kind of fill up the nether wastes really quickly, which is kind of dangerous, because if you're thinking late game, you're probably going to be flying around this biome more often than not, which creates big barriers that you now have to fly around in late game. Unlike weeping vines, these vines actually have no determined growth length. They will just continue to grow until they hit the floor. So some of these vines that spawn out here above the lava lakes can end up getting incredibly long. Which brings me to my least favorite biome in the Nether, which I believe is pretty much agreed upon to be the worst biome of all time and is intentionally designed to get you killed. And that is the Basalt Deltas. Now, the Basalt Deltas contain a very few amount of additions, which pretty much consists of two entities. The first entity I'm actually hoping that this magma cube will create for you, which is the magma mite. These magma mites spawn, as you can see here, whenever a magma cube bounces or jumps on a magma block. So you can see when this one jumps here, it should probably spawn another one, unless he's technically on that black stone over there. But these magma mites are pretty cool. They'll chase you down and do damage. They're not that big of a threat, but they do drop magma shards. Now, magma shards are kind of like mini blaze rods. They're another fuel source that you can get here in the Nether, and if you get a bunch of them, you can actually craft them into a magma block. Now, this is not a crafting recipe that goes both ways, meaning you can only get these magma shards from these magma mites, but farming them might be easier than you think. And that is because I was in the fire there. That is because the other mob that spawns here is the basalt golems, which, as you can see, hunt down these magma mites and kill them. So they'll hopefully keep your basalt deltas a little bit more in check, considering I'm actively spawning in more enemies for you to fight. But these basalt golems will not actually attack you, not naturally. If you attack them, they will of course attack you back. But they are armed with a netherite sword, so they do a lot of damage and they're pretty healthy. You can also spawn these guys yourself by using the classic snow golem build, except replacing the snow with basalt and replacing the jack-o'-lantern with magma, and then right-clicking that middle basalt with a magma shard. Of course, if I was in survival, that would consume my magma shard. Which brings us to the ever well-known Crimson Forest biome. Now, the Crimson Forest and the Warped Forest biomes were also relatively untouched, but the Crimson Forest less touch than the Warped Forest biome, considering that hoglins and piglins spawn pretty frequently in this biome. I think it's pretty well designed and pretty much complete, except for one entity. And that entity, as you can see here, is the ignition toad. Now, these are pretty much the creepers of the Nether. You can see another one right over there, and as soon as I collide with this toad, it's gonna explode a lot and be pretty volatile at that. You can actually see that this one over here died from his explosion, which is really unheard of. And they're gonna drop some napalm. Now, napalm is kind of like gunpowder, but obviously way more volatile. So of course you use it to craft volatile TNT. Now, volatile TNT is gonna do twice the explosion of regular TNT and is also way easier to light and has no fuse time. So when I click this TNT, it's just gonna explode on me immediately. So this TNT, at least in my opinion, is fairly balanced, because even though it is a way larger explosion, it cannot be duped because it explodes immediately, and it's the falling effect that allows you to dupe TNT in the first place. Now, if I was in survival, these toads would be pretty threatening, because as soon as they see me, they're gonna chase me down and just try and touch me. They don't care about themselves. Just like the creepers, they're suicide machines, and their only goal is to blow you up. But moving on from the Crimson Forest biome, we have the Warped Forest biome. Now, the Warped Forest biome is similar. I didn't do too much here, but it actually has two new unique mobs, considering that the hoglins can't really spawn here. And the first of which you may have already spotted is the Confungus. Now, this thing is actually really cool, and all credit for the name goes to my girlfriend, as she came up with it, and I think it's just absolutely genius. As this confungus, as you can probably see, is spawning in living spores that fly around, and after too long, they'll just despawn themselves, because I didn't want it to, you know, lag your game out too much. But if you touch one of these spores or inhale one, it's going to give you confusion, and it's going to be really hard to move around. Your movement is pretty much going to be randomized, and it's not fun. So it's going to make these warped forest biomes a lot harder to navigate. You're going to start seeing spores, and presumably you won't see the confungus, but you'll have to go find it and hunt it down to kill it and stop getting the confusion. Now, when you do successfully kill one of these guys, they'll drop mushrooms, which is kind of nice. But if you have yourself some looting, you also have a chance to get some spores. Now, these spores can be used as a potion ingredient to craft yourself a potion of pawn fusion, which is actually a little bit of a reference to Munchkin, an old board game if you've ever played it, which has a weapon called the potion of pawn fusion. So this would be called the potion of kin fusion. And when you consume this potion, it gives you the buff, or should I say debuff, that you get when colliding with the spores. And the other entity in the warped forest biome is also going to interfere with navigation, as it is the Grippler. Now, I had a vision for these guys to kind of come up out of the ground when you got near and grab you, and that is why it slows down your movement so much. But I don't have any animations, so ideally when the animations come, they'll jump up out of the ground and kind of grab you, so anyone nearby gets stuck. But these are definitely going to be a pain in the butt. Imagine fighting the confungus, getting forced to walk randomly, and then all of a sudden you're stuck and you accidentally spotted an Enderman, which is now chasing you. Kind of scary stuff. But if you kill these gripplers, which they are pretty easy to kill, they have a chance to drop thorny branches. Now, these thorny branches are pretty cool, as they can be used to craft thorny vines. Now, thorny vines are pretty much just identical to regular vines, except for the fact that you can't climb on them, because if you climb on them, they're gonna damage you, because of course they're thorny. But they'll grow totally naturally. They also don't totally grow down blocks like this. It's something that I just kind of need to work on their coding a little bit more, but I think they are a lot of fun. They also don't grow in at this speed. I've got the random tick speed set to 3,000 currently. So if I set it back to 3, you'll notice they slow down pretty drastically. Now, this leaves us with 2 more biomes to cover. I don't know what you're thinking. Isn't Soul Sand Valley the last biome? But I've actually added a completely unique biome of my own, which you saw a little bit there, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. First things first is the Soul Sand Valley, and you may notice there is a new type of tree. Or maybe it's a tree? I think it's a tree. These are actually damned trees, or petrified trees. So if I place them down, I don't know if you can hear that, but they sound like stone. They have become petrified and lost in the valley of soul sand that is swept through here. So they spawn kind of inside of blocks, and you can just dig around in this biome to find them. They're going to be kind of hard to get, but their wood is way tougher than wood, because of course it's actually stone, because it's been petrified. Damned wood is fully integrated the same way all the other woods are. As you can see here, there's even doors, trapdoors, pressure plates, fences, even blinds, but there is of course no signs or boats. I haven't gotten to those yet. Now, these trees are pretty much the only addition to the Soul Sand Valley, except maybe that block right there, which we'll get to just in a moment. There's another one right there. But something else that kind of struck me as odd in the Nether update was that they added soul soil, but they didn't change soul sand really at all, except for the bubble columns, which are great, but it's sand. And every other version of sand has glass. So why do we not have any soul glass? Well, we actually do. We have soul glass and heat glass, if you can recall from earlier with our heat sand. These are 2 pretty much just types of glass. You can see right through them, but they each have their own unique effect. Of course, the heat glass is if I touch it and I am in survival, I'm gonna take damage. So as you can see, I cannot touch the heat glass. It's not safe at all. But you'll notice, ooh,
Hello, welcome back. If my voice seems agitated or different at all, it's because we've had some issues. It keeps crashing on me for some reason, just like totally randomly out of nowhere. I think it's because of the recording software, and honestly, I need to upgrade my PC. And then my footage gets corrupted, and it's wackadoo. But like I was trying to say, the heat glass you can't touch because he's hot, but the soul glass you can't touch because it has no collision, so you walk right through that boy. I think this is pretty cool. I don't actually see any use for this, honestly, because arrows and like skeletons shoot right through it. Creepers and zombies, they pathfind through it. I can't find a way to turn it off, so I don't see any use for this, honestly. But I think it's cool. I think it's funny, and maybe one day, like soul sand, it can go from useless to super useful. One day, we'll see. But you may be wondering, what about the new biome? What about the new biome that I added? Well, I had a thought, right? If the Crimson Forest has the Warped Forest, then what would the Nether Wastes have? The Soul Sand Valley or the Basalt Deltas? And I came to the conclusion that it would be the Basalt Deltas. It's kind of like, you know, if the Nether Wastes is like land on the sides and then lava at the bottom, this has lava all over the sides and not much land, and it's still got big lava lakes, but like, I don't know, it's more the mirror than this is, right? So what mirror does the Soul Sand Valley have, right? Well, it's a Soul Sand Valley, souls and sand and valley. So I made the Spectre Cliffs. Now the Spectre Cliffs is obviously inspired by the Soul Sand Valley, and it has two new entity types, one of which you can see here is the Ghost. Now ghosts are pretty cool. When you kill them, you will get ectoplasm. Now, there's really no reason to kill them because they're passive. If I go ahead and switch my game mode to survival, it's not going to come after me. I'm totally safe here. But if I attack it, it will of course attack me back, and maybe one day its ghost companions will also attack you back. And I don't know if it calls for backup, but it's gonna call for backup. We're just gonna say that it calls for backup. Anyways, if you do successfully kill them, you can get some ectoplasm. Now, ectoplasm is another slime or honey blocker, at least it will be. That's a lot of redstone programming, and there's no easy way to do it. So unfortunately, it doesn't actually work like slime or honey, but eventually it will, and it will be the third variant. And instead of bouncing or sticking to it, you just walk right through it. And now this, I think, could actually have a ton of uses. I think it actually speeds. Oh yeah, it speeds you up. I kind of forgot about that. You move much faster in here. Lubricated by the ectoplasm. Oh my gosh! Wow. Yes, this has a ton of uses. Oh, that's dangerous. Oh shoot! Oh shoot! Nailed it. All right, enough of that. Once again, doesn't stick to blocks when pushed with pistons like it should, but you can move through it and it speeds you up. These are supposed to be the opposite of the damned trees. Instead of forsaken trees, these are just ghost trees, and they also have no collision. You'll notice that's kind of a theme of this biome. Now these are fully integrated. They even have blinds, doors, but you'll notice there's not only regular versions but also dense versions. So if you get yourself enough of these items, you can actually craft them together just like this and get yourself some dense versions. Now if you get yourself some planks and try to craft yourself a pressure plate, you'll notice that's the same crafting recipe, but it does give you a pressure plate. You can also craft them like this. However, this should be sticks, so that's kind of a forfeit because, you know, they're ghost planks. You don't get ghost sticks, you just get the dense version. Now in order to break these blocks, you actually need a brand new enchantment called Reaping. I believe, if I remember correctly, you can only get this enchantment from trading with villagers, and you cannot get it from enchantment tables or loot chests, but I can't remember. You might be able to get it from loot chests, I'm not sure. but you need this enchantment on your tools in order to break and actually obtain these blocks. Otherwise, they will just simply disappear. You'll also notice there are 3 new blocks here, the first of which being sulfur. This is a sulfur cloud, and it's a gaseous block. You can once again move through this, and when it is destroyed, it will actually drop sulfur powder, which is interchangeable with bone meal and will help grow crops. Right here you can see the second mob in the game, or in this new biome. This is the Spectre. Now these are hostile and will attack you, which is rather dangerous because if you play with no particles, or that is particles minimal, these guys totally disappear because they have no model or texture. They are completely particles. Now that is obviously going to be pretty dangerous if you're exploring this biome. And if you kill them, you don't really get anything, that is, unless you have this enchantment, reaping. And if you have reaping, you can actually get their soul, that is to say, soul fragments here. And these soul fragments are going to be pretty important in just a moment. First, we have to talk about these 2 blocks right here. This first one is a very pretty block I much enjoy. I think this could be a great diorite texture, like, come on. But this is just calcified netherrack. It is from all of the egregore and ectoplasm goop that has seeped into the netherrack over the years and caused this to be such a ghostly wasteland. And this, of course, is a concentrated batch of calcified egregore. Now, this might look fairly familiar as the mystery block from the Soul Sand Valleys. Now, the Soul Sand Valleys are fairly ghostly. As you can see, there's a few bits of egregore here and there, but nothing quite as bad as this, and nothing that is calcified like this egregore is. Now, this calcified egregore is fairly useless, except for the fact that when you touch it, it will actually take away any buffs, debuffs, or anything that you have on you, any effects. But other than that, it doesn't really do much. But this egregore, on the other hand, is incredibly useful, especially with these soul fragments. Now, this egregore is actually semi-interchangeable with another block, and that is ancient debris. When you smelt this egregore down in a furnace or blast furnace, or... oh, I have no blast furnace recipe. Should I make one? Yeah, ancient debris works, so I should definitely make a blast furnace recipe. But let's just smelt it in a furnace, and when you smelt this egregore down, you're going to get something called coalescent thought. Now, coalescent thought can be compared to the netherite scrap, and that means that you can craft it into another netherite tier armor modification. Now, the egregore and the soul fragments, the coalescent thought, these are the magic modification, and they go with the mithril ingots. I hinted earlier that mithril and cobalt have special uses, kind of like gold does. This is that, and I hope to expand upon it even further. So if you take some mithril and some soul fragments and some coalescent thought, you get yourself soul essence. Now, this soul essence is pretty much equivalent to a netherite ingot, except completely different. And if you take yourself about 4 cobalt and 4 piglin scrap, this is another netherite equivalent. This is simply found in bastions and nether fortresses. I believe nether fortresses, but for sure bastions, and in fairly normal quantities. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I actually just took the netherite scrap spawning and swapped it for piglin scrap. So you can no longer get netherite from these bastion remnants. You get piglin scrap instead. You craft that piglin scrap into some piglin steel, and then you can craft that onto your armor, any diamond tier armor. So that is to say, diamond, platinum, or titanium works for both of these to craft the new netherite tier armors. Now, this one I also want to be incorporated into kind of more magic-y builds, and I want to expand upon the magic of Minecraft overall. It's not super fleshed out yet, so if you have any comments or recommendations, just please feel free to leave them down below. But I do want to stick to as authentic of a traditional Minecraft feel as I can, so keep that in mind when you're commenting. But netherite is of course known for its ability to not burn up when you throw it into lava or fire or anything like that, and I wanted to put a similar trait into these new armors. Now, the piglin steel is pretty cool because it actually negates piglin aggro. When you wear any of this armor or hold piglin steel items, you actually negate piglin aggro and they won't attack you, which I think is incredibly nice considering the fact that I don't want to wear or use gold tools, especially when I'm in the Nether. Like, that just seems really inconvenient. So let's have another version, but you gotta keep in mind, this is not fireproof, and neither is this one. Now, the magic one is considerably more interesting. That is because each piece of armor actually has a specific debuff that it removes while wearing it. So while wearing the soul hood, it prevents blindness, which you may recall is what the elder spider gives you when you're crawling around in the spider dens and you find a web. If you wear the soul cloak, it prevents hunger. If you wear the soul robes, it prevents mining fatigue, which you may recall is what the elder guardian gives you when you go down into ocean monuments. And if you wear the soul slippers, it prevents slowness. Now, slowness and hunger are obviously just notorious debuffs that I thought should probably be removed and would be very convenient. But these ones align to elder bosses, and I want to create 2 more that spawn in 2 more monuments that I have some ideas for that align to these 2 pieces of armor. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. There are still a few more changes related to bastions and wither skeletons. So I looted this entire Bastion Remnant, and you'll notice very quickly, not only are some of my modded items totally acquirable, this is not only true for Bastion Remnants, but most structures that you can find. It's not true for all structures, just most of them. But you'll also notice that you get some piglin scrap. Now, if this was a normal structure and you weren't playing it with my mod, you would have gotten netherite scrap instead. But I looted about 12 different chests, and this is the loot I came up with. It's pretty good, as you can tell. These tools right here are all diamond equivalent, and this one itself is actually pretty goated. Same with the, wow. This one's also diamond level, pretty good. So here it is split into 2 piles of anything that you can get modded and anything that you can get just by default. Now, all of these would turn into gold blocks. This would turn into iron and iron blocks. And these would turn into diamond tools. But other than that, you technically, you're not losing anything. It's just kind of spreading your loot out a little bit more. But by far the coolest change to these bastions is probably not the loot tables. It's actually what happens when you kill yourself a piglin brute. Now, as you can see here, if you kill a piglin brute in a bastion, then it is going to spawn in an imp. Now, I wanted these imps to just spawn in these bastion remnants naturally, but that wasn't really possible. It was kind of hard to do, and I'm working on that, and eventually, hopefully, that is how it will work. But for now, while you're killing these piglin brutes, if you kill them, they'll spawn in an imp. Now, the imp is meant to be a magical version of the wither skeleton, and that is to say that the wither skeleton is the big chunky bad guy that you fight in the nether fortresses, and the imp is the big chunky bad guy that you fight in the Bastion Remnants. They're just kind of magic-y, but they do share similar properties in my mod. The wither skeletons in my mod have 2 additional drops when you kill them, both being pretty rare. The first item is a withered bone, which obviously mirrors the normal bone, and of course you can craft that into chitin, which is kind of an upgraded version of bone meal. That is to say, it will grow crops the same as bone meal does, but it actually has other uses as well. So if I get myself some chitin here, I can actually turn that into a chitin block, the same way I can turn bone meal into a bone block. And then I can take this chitin block, throw it in a stone cutter, and cut it into cursed ivory. The same way I can cut regular bones into regular ivory. Now, cursed ivory is obviously a little bit different, of course, having a different texture, but it also will apply the wither effect to anyone who touches it. So if I were touching it from the side or standing on top of it, you'll notice I just kind of get infinite wither effect. And the second drop is wither skull fragments, which are of course more common than the wither skull itself, and once you get yourself 9 of them, can be crafted to make yourself an extra wither skull.
but they actually have another crafting recipe as well. If you take just one wither skull fragment and then get yourself some extra piglin or netherite scrap, it does not matter which one. All right, the crafting recipe isn't working, but I promise it will. But that will craft up the skull scooper, which is actually the second tool in the game that is above netherite value. Now this is obviously a shovel, and it will scoop up any sand type blocks incredibly quickly because it is actually above netherite tier. Which brings us full circle back to the imp, because when you kill these imps you'll get nothing in creative mode, which will likely be changed, but you have the chance to get 4 different drops, 2 of which being more common and 2 of which being more rare. The first one is the imp horn. Now the imp horn can be crafted directly into cursed ivory, or it can be used to craft chitin, which can then be crafted into bone or chitin blocks and then can be crafted into cursed ivory. Now if you do the math here, you'll notice this actually consumes 4 imp horns or 8 chitin, whereas the traditional crafter recipe consumes 9 chitin. So you do save a little bit when you make your cursed ivory using the imp horns. Now this imp leather is pretty useful because it is how you make your first set of nether type armor. And then there's of course a full set, so let's just make it right here. Now the coolest thing about this is while it is technically a leather tier armor, its defense values are at the same level of iron tier armor. And of course, being from the nether, it also shares netherite's property of being fireproof, so if we throw all that stuff in the fire, you'll notice it does not burn up at all. And I'm sure what you're wondering is, of course, what does this set of armor look like? And in my opinion, it is definitely one of the coolest sets in the entire game. But you may be thinking to yourself, wow, that is pretty cool. It's kind of useless because most people get diamond armor before they even enter the nether. And this is only at iron tier, so why would I ever use this even though it's fireproof? And the answer is because it can actually be upgraded using the chitin into chitin armor. So if you pretty much put any piece of armor in the center except for the chest piece, which goes at the top, and then craft another piece of that armor around it, so you can see the helmet is in the center and I've crafted another helmet, I can make a chitin helmet. Once again, with the chest piece, you have to put it in the top because of course the crafting recipe uses the center, but the rest simply just go in the center. You'll notice for the boots, even though I could put it here or here or here, it doesn't work. It only works when I put it in the center. Now this chitin armor is not only fireproof like the imp leather armor, but it is at diamond tier level. So if you equip this armor, it is the equivalent of having diamond armor on, and eventually will be your only way to get armor that is better than netherite armor later on in the game. There are currently no armor sets that are better than netherite, including the soul and the piglin armor. Those are both equivalent to netherite, but this is the armor set that you will have to upgrade to get better than netherite eventually. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Ace, that's all well and good, but you said there was another tool that is better or equivalent to netherite. Why? Where is this tool? And that is where the imp claw comes in. Now the imp claw and the imp staff are both weapons, the imp claw being a melee weapon and the imp staff being a ranged weapon. But the imp claw is kind of underpowered. It's not super good in terms of weaponry, but you can take some piglin or netherite scrap once again and craft it into the Demonis Manus. Now the Demonis Manus is actually a netherite plus tier pickaxe. So if you go mining around with this thing, it should hopefully be fast enough to break deep slate with haste 2 instantly. Although I guess I haven't tested it. It is just one step up from netherite, so you're gonna have to get it yourself and see how you like it. Now I'm not a huge fan of how these objects show up in the inventory. When you hold them, I think they look okay, especially the skull scooper, but it's kind of low. You see, like, you know, I want it to come up, like it doesn't quite work like the other ones do. So that'll probably change a little bit, but for the most part, and other than some of the basic tweaks and changes, and of course the imp staff, that is everything to the Nether overhaul. Now I have saved the imp staff for last because it is probably by far the coolest thing in this mod, and it shoots fireballs. Now this is exactly how the imp attacks you as well, so it's quite a force to be reckoned with. And as of right now, I don't have any cooldown on this, so it's really, really, really strong. Eventually there will be a pretty hefty cooldown on it, but for now, if you've grinded to get this thing, and it is a rare drop, you should probably just have some fun with it. Woo! All right, but here we are. That is one more pack done, and leaves 3 left. Next up, we'll cover A.C.E.S Automation, which has a fairly small set of redstone type blocks. Now, I want to expand on this pretty heftily in the future, but Mcreator is incredibly limited with your redstone capabilities and what you can make. So for now, this is what we have. Right here, I don't think you need any explanation that these are conveyor belts. Now, even though their animation is moving, they're actually off. This is something I want to change in the future, but the conveyor belt here actually requires a redstone signal. So if I turn it on here, it is also pushing in the wrong direction. So, okay, this needs some fixes. Whee! However, these conveyor belts push in the direction you'd think they would. Now, the corners are a bit confusing just because they come directly out from the corner, but this is not misleading. It looks like it's going this way, and it does indeed go this way. Now, these are the conveyors themselves. So these are conveyor belts. These are conveyors. If you craft up yourself some conveyor belts and then craft a frame for it as well, you can make yourself conveyor. Now, conveyor does not require redstone. As you can see, it just kind of pushes infinitely. And it will not only push mobs, but also items. Sometimes it lags out there and it kind of just jumps. That's crazy to see. But you may not recognize this block either, and that is because it is also one of our custom machines. This is the concrete mixer. So if we get ourselves some water and right click on the concrete here, the concrete mixer, you'll notice it will fill up, and once it is full and I can no longer put water in, it just opens it up. And then our water texture here is all full. Then get yourself any type of concrete you wish, as long as it is not soft concrete, because of course soft concrete cannot be converted. Go in here and press mix, and you've got yourself an entire stack of concrete, and it consumes just a little bit of that water, so we can fill it right back up. This here is an advanced furnace called the Crucible. Now, I may actually change this and integrate another type of crucible, but that is all stuff later on. For now, the Crucible will smelt down any objects you have, any stone you have with advanced fuels, that is fuel that comes from the Nether, and turn it into lava. So the only 2 Nether fuels that I have right now are the magma shards and the blaze rods. Blaze rods being stronger than magma shards, and that is to say that they just last longer, they don't smelt faster or anything like that. And then you have several types of stone. Your traditional stone is going to smelt up for just a few pieces of lava, not much at all, and it's also gonna take a little bit here on the scale to melt it down. But the deep slate will take even longer and give you a little bit more lava. You'll see that the meter here ticks up just a bit, and the tank level goes to 8. Now, this is in millibuckets, and a single bucket can hold 1,000 millibuckets. So it's not very efficient. It takes an absolute ton of time and resources. And if we swap out our ingredient here, it should, yes, successfully reset the progress bar as well. Now, getting all this completely correct took me a very long time. There were several bugs where it was just eating stacks of items for a while. So if you have any problems with this, please let me know immediately. Feel free to tinker with it if you want to try and get it to break. And if you can get some things to repeat and can say exactly how to break it, please let me know. But other than that, try not to mess with it. You may have noticed that when I first turned it on, it kicked me out of the inventory. That's actually to help prevent that bug. And I'll fix it probably at some point, but for now there's really just quite nothing I can do about it. And if you notice this scale not, going up properly or anything like that, once again, just please let me know, because actually I can see right now it looks like like this piece isn't smelting, like for some reason deep slate isn't working. So there might be some considerable bugs with this. We'll have to see. So I have actually successfully been able to smelt down a piece of deep slate, and it gave me double what the stone did. So I now have 24 millibuckets. But if you do some quick math, at 16 millibuckets per piece of stone, or deep slate, I should say, and 1,000 millibuckets in a bucket, that is just under a stack of deep slate per bucket. So 63 pieces right here. I'll have to smelt down this entire stack to get a single bucket of lava. You can see I ran out of fuel there, and it successfully reused my blaze rod. Now you're not going to be burning through too much fuel here because it does last for quite a while. But moving right along, we have some other hot business. This is the heat sensor. Now if I place it down here, you'll notice it has a slightly different animation. And I place it here, that's because this is the on heat sensor. It is of course detecting heat. So if I place some redstone here, you'll notice it gives out a redstone signal, and that is basically coming from any heat block. So if I destroy this campfire, you'll notice it's still on. All of these blocks are examples of things that emit heat. So the lava here, the magma cube, in the heat sand. So if I destroy all of them and the lava goes away, you'll notice it turns off immediately. But if I put another magma block here, the heat comes back. Now, eventually, depending on the heat source next to it, I want this to emit varying levels of redstone, but that's simply just not possible with Mcreator. Right here, we have a pretty simple yet effective block, the incubator. Now, the incubator is pretty self-explanatory in the fact that you just right-click it with eggs, and you'll put those eggs in the incubator. I believe it can hold up to 16 eggs, so you can put an entire stack in there at a time. And then it will just tick every game update, and it will have a chance of spawning in the chickens. Now, they don't spawn as babies, so if we can just wait for a minute, you'll see a chicken hopefully pop up on the top of this incubator, and it'll be a grown chicken, which is currently an advantage to using the incubator. The incubator doesn't actually spawn your chickens any faster than just throwing them does. Every game tick, it has the same probability of spawning a chicken that a normal egg does. However, if it fails to spawn, it will not consume the egg. So essentially what an incubator does is guarantees you that you get at least one chicken per every egg. So it makes your eggs much, much more useful. Now, we haven't been lucky enough to get one, so I'm actually going to speed up the tick updates. So we're going to set it to 3,000.
2 hours later.
Does it need redstone? Yeah, there we go. So that was really quick. Let's set it back to 3 and then take a look at this. So now that it has redstone, whenever it ticks randomly, it'll have a chance of spawning in chickens on top of it. And hopefully now we'll be able to see one. Okay, no, I'm going to accept that we're not going to see one. So, it currently does not work for turtle eggs. I can't put any turtle eggs in. I can't put any sniffer eggs in, and I can't put the dragon egg in. I do eventually one day want it to work for turtle eggs and maybe sniffer eggs? I'll probably make an advanced incubator that works with sniffer eggs. And perhaps one day it'll even work for the dragon egg, but for now, that is not an option. Once I successfully am able to spawn in baby chickens, I'll probably add the ability for turtle eggs so that they can spawn as baby turtles, but I don't want you to be, I don't want it to spawn grown turtles, because if it spawns grown turtles, then you can't get the scoot from the baby turtle growing up, and it's kind of like the whole point, isn't it? This right here is a redstone counter. So you may have been building a redstone contraption that has a set number of pulses, and after, I don't know, say 10 pulses, you want it to reset back to default. And that's exactly what this does, is it will store redstone pulse. So if I give it a signal here, and then break it, you see that it stored that signal. Now if I give it some more signal and break it, it's going to then emit a signal, because this is a 1 capacitor counter, which means it releases a charge after having its second pulse. I have counters that release after every second pulse, every third pulse, and every 5th pulse. Now you may be thinking to yourself, what if I want it after every 4th pulse? Well, that is where you can chain these capacitors together. So this one does it after every second pulse. So if we slap 2 of them together, it'll be after every 4th pulse. So let's go ahead and charge it up with 1 pulse here, and that one gets charged. give it a second pulse here. This one will charge up and then output to all sides, giving this its first pulse. We can then give our initial one the third pulse. It will store it in here. And then we give our initial one the fourth and final pulse. It will go export and then export. 4 pulses. The only issue with this is the fact that the pulse then travels back into this one. So there's a pretty simple fix by integrating anything that limits the redstone to traveling in a single direction. The repeaters are the easiest way to do this in my opinion, but let's say that we've already clicked this once, simulate our second pulse, and now you'll see this successfully charge that one. Simulate our third pulse, simulate our fourth pulse, and while this will go to here, it doesn't travel back, and thus you now have a 4 pulse counter. If you're playing in creative, you may notice that there is another redstone component called the AND gate. And while the AND gate does work visually, it doesn't actually output any signal. So the way this AND gate works, if you are familiar with redstone, is whenever it's receiving a signal from both the left and right, I actually got that backwards, left and right side, these torches will turn off, allowing it to emit a signal both to the north and south, or up and down, or whatever it may be. So we can simulate that right here by placing a redstone block here, and you'll see that this torch turns off. You can then place one right here, this turns off, and then the signal switches to be up and down. However, if I place redstone dust here, it doesn't actually emit a signal, and that's because with Mcreator, redstone components are all or none. They either emit redstone to all sides unconditionally, like a redstone block, or they don't emit redstone at all. So I can't actually have this emit redstone without it just sending redstone back up these paths, and then it is just always on and will never turn off. So it doesn't actually work, but it does visibly work. So if you wanted to chain a bunch of these together and make some type of crazy looking decorative contraption, go for it. I also just noticed that you can place these. Can you place counters on? No, you can't place counters on top of redstone, but like, okay, that needs to be fixed. Which leads us to our final 2 redstone components, the drill and the saw table. Now the drill is pretty self-explanatory. I believe the saw table will probably end up being pretty self-explanatory too. I really hate the way this looks. Mostly this up here, this monotonous up here. So we have the saw table and the table saw. But I think I'm going to get rid of the table saw and just make it a circular saw, or a saw blade that you can put right on top of this table, and then change up this table texture a little bit as well, because I'm not a fan of this. I slapped it together kind of lazily, and it needs tweaked. But for now, this is how it works. These table saws can only be placed on saw tables. You can't put them anywhere else, and they only work on saw tables anyways. Now your drill chassis here is made of obsidian, and this drill bit is made out of iron. This is the only drill bit currently, but eventually there will be more drill bits so that you can make diamond drill bits and thus break obsidian and other materials. But the way that this works is you currently place your drill chassis facing in any direction you want. I believe it's based on, yes, block placement, not player face. It's just like the logs, I think. And then you place your iron drill bit on it, and then if you give it some redstone signal, it will now break any stone blocks in front of it. Now, if the item is on this list here and it also has a stair or slab or halve or corner or fence or wall or anything like that, it should also be broken with this tier. Now, the next tier up, the diamond tier, will probably be able to destroy deep slate stuff. Now, I understand that that's not how diamonds and iron actually works, but there are no stone drill bits, and I want these drills to kind of be limited in their use and kind of be tricky. I don't want them to be too overpowered because we already have technical ways to drill through stone. It's just kind of inconvenient and inconsiderate, so I want to make it a little bit easier without making it overpowered. But once again, yeah, you can break pretty much any of these blocks. All right, so if we just take some of these here, we'll take the stone and a few of the ores, just so you can see that the ores work, and then a few of the other items. Yeah, just like this. So if we go ahead and place the stone here, when it just... Ooh. Okay. All right,
we've got all that fixed now. If I place this in, it doesn't always break it immediately. I think this is on a 1-second timer, so every second it should break the block in front of it and give you whatever you would normally get for breaking that block. Now the saw table and table saw work pretty much the same way, but for wood. So I believe you need logs. It is absolutely required for you to have logs. And I also believe that it needs to be redstone powered. And then any log touching the saw blade here will get destroyed. You'll see that this one does not and this one does not because it is in the wrong direction. If I take this saw table and turn it, these both now get destroyed as well. You'll also notice there that if I really quickly spam in a bunch of blocks, it'll only destroy them one at a time, so it's kind of limited in what it can do. This probably won't see too many changes. Like I said, I scrapped it together, threw it together pretty quickly, so the texture design will change probably, but the functionality and usage will probably stay mostly the same throughout various patches and changes. But with all that covered, we can move right along to the second to last section, which is A.C.E.S storage. Now, A.C.E.S storage can pretty much be summed up right here. So first and foremost, we have dressers. Now drawers. Now drawers are actually bigger than your traditional chest by 1 row, and they're split into 2 different sections. Now, if I have a block in front of these drawers, I can't open them. They slide open from the front. Same with the cabinets up here. Now, these cabinets are pretty much just another type of barrel or something like that. And they open from the front as well. So if I have something from the front, I can't open it. Now, these right here are metal barrels or crates. Now, there are 2 different types of crate. The first one is your decorative style crate. That is your aluminum, your copper, your nickel, and your tin. These all have 9 inventory slots, as you can see right here. But if you make a iron type crate, that is, of course, iron, lead, silver, and tungsten, which isn't here. Let's grab that from creative real quick, and then we can place in the iron crate, the lead crate, the silver crate, and the tungsten crate. And if you open these crates, they're full chest-sized crates. I'm also working on a double crate or a locker. Now, eventually this will combine when you stack 2 on top of each other and create a tall locker, just like you can get a double chest by placing it wide. But for now, they're just individual things, and I believe they don't open with blocks in front of them. But the crates, you can have blocks absolutely anywhere, and as long as you can still access it from one face, they'll open. This leads pretty well to these right here, which, as you can probably guess, are fluid tanks. Now, these fluid tanks stack vertically, so if I put any liquid in this top fluid tank here, it's automatically going to drain down into the bottom one. But I am currently kind of limited on what liquids I can put in there. So as you can see, I can right click it with a bucket and that water just drops all the way down to the one down here, or I can just try and fill up this one. In the creative menu here, I actually have full versions of any liquid for the tanks, and you can see right now it only stores water or XP. That's because these tanks are not strong enough to hold lava. You'll actually have to make a reinforced tank in order to hold lava. If you try to put lava in one of these, it just breaks. As you can see right here, as soon as I click the lava in there, it stays for a second and then just breaks the cage. So don't bother putting lava into any of your fluid crates here. In fact, it should break when the lava touches it on the outside as well. That might be something that changes later. But we've also got these XP drains right here, and that is so that you can put an XP drain on the top of one of these fluid tanks and stand on top of it, and it will drain your XP, as you can see right there. Now, if I take one of these water tanks and try to put it up on top of here and drain it into this XP tank, it will not drain through. Even if I have an empty tank down here, you'll watch the XP drain into the empty tank and then the water drain into the tank above it. Just like that, it's still not going to skip down here and join with the rest of this water. And if I place any tanks along the side, it's not going to spread out. Like I said, these tanks stack vertically, but not horizontally. Next up, we have pouches. There's not only leather pouches, but wool pouches. There are wool pouches for every color, and these are like mini shulkers. They, of course, cannot hold other pouches inside of them, but other than that, you can put pretty much whatever you want inside of these guys. I will go ahead and let you know that when you put items in there, unlike a shulker, you're not going to be able to tell what's in there until you open it up. It gives you absolutely no preview whatsoever, which isn't something I'm set on, but something that might not change in the future. These tool chest, toolbox, and tool kits are like separate versions of these pouches, having even less storage, but designed explicitly to store tools. So the tool kit here can store 2 tools, the toolbox can hold up to 4, and the tool chest can hold up to 6. Now these toolkits here can hold pretty much any of the items you see here in my inventory. Not only can it hold my special items that, you know, don't follow the traditional tool model or anything like that, but it can also hold the knife, the sickle, which I think I might have forgotten to cover. It destroys crops in a 3x3 area. This is actually really cool. I hope I didn't forget to cover this because it's kind of useful. But it can also hold bows, crossbows, your spyglass brush, your clocks and compasses, your flint and steel, shears of any type, any durability, fishing rods. This includes the carrot on a stick and the mushroom on a stick, your shield, your trident. And if I'm missing any tools here that you guys want to be able to carry around in these toolkits, please let me know. I considered having buckets in here, maybe even scaffolding. I thought that might be a little bit of a stretch, but yeah, any spare tools, you can store them in your tool chest and free up some space in your shulkers and your ender chest. And with all of these blocks now covered, we have but one single creation section left. But I've just checked the runtime for this video, and it's about 15 minutes away from hitting 2 hours, which is definitely the absolute limit. So we're gonna see if we can cover this last section, which is A.C.E.S Random Things, in less than 10 minutes. Like I said, this is A.C.E.S Random Things, and we have but a single hotbar worth of items. Some of these items are easier to explain than others, such as dynamite, which is a throwable projectile and explodes with about, 1/4 the power of TNT. This has its own special crafting recipe, but can also be crafted using TNT, and is pretty useful, especially for crafting this. The Spud Bomb. You take yourself some potatoes and some dynamite, craft that together to get yourself a Spud Bomb. Now this Spud Bomb can be planted back down and looks like a fully grown potato, except you can see just a little bit of dynamite sticking out of the dirt. Now the idea with this is you go to your friend's crop fields, the ones that are, filled with potatoes, and ideally they totally ignore it and don't see that. Now the idea behind this addition is that you come to your friend's wheat fields, well, not wheat fields, potato fields, and you plant a Spud Bomb hidden within their mists, and then your friend comes along without really looking at his potatoes and accidentally breaks your Spud Bomb. However, if they happen to see your Spud Bomb before clicking on it, they can pull out their hoe, right click it, and it will harvest the Spud Bomb back up, so that they can replant it in your fields, or maybe eat it? Yeah, I wonder what eating it will do. Okay, same thing. But that brings us to the hook and grappling hook. Now the hook here, if I jump up and click it onto that item, it will hang there and then spawn some rope below it that I can climb to help me get on top of these blocks here. The grappling hook takes that one step further though, and allows me to throw the hook, and if it collides successfully, it's going to do that same thing and start spawning in rope. Now this rope is limited in length, as you can see. It doesn't come all the way down, but I just might be able to make the jump. No, too bad. Doesn't seem like I'm going to be able to make it. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to pillar up a little bit more and then start climbing my rope. Now, once I get to the top here, there's really no way to get on top of the block I have it attached to. So you'll notice you either have to place yourself a block there, which is, totally possible, or just use it to get up some smaller heights. For example, if I just wanted to climb up here, I could throw a grappling hook up there and then easily get here. Next up, we have two more projectiles. The first one being the mud ball, or ball of mud. This thing's pretty much the same as a snowball. Its current particles are the same as the slime particles. This needs to be changed. I was just too lazy to draw my own mud particles. It will be changed very soon. But other than that, it's pretty much just the exact same thing as a snowball. It can be crafted into a block of mud, and it should drop instead of the block of mud, and you have to craft it yourself. The other item is the smoke bomb. Now, when you throw these smoke bombs, not only does it have a charge up so you can throw it further, and a really cool animation for it traveling, in my opinion, but when it hits, it's going to spawn in a bunch of smoke that's going to fairly quickly dissipate. And if you happen to actually hit an entity that is, whether it's a player or a cow or whatever it may be, then that entity will get blindness. So I think I might be, no, so I might be able to hit myself if I throw it up and let it fall. Come on, let's try one more time. There we go. So that entity will get blindness. So if you're in PvP and you actually manage to get a direct hit, that's going to help you out way more than just throwing it at the ground and running away. But the smoke here is fairly intense enough that if you throw it and run quick enough, you just might be able to get at least a decent lead, especially if you chuck an ender pearl. Which brings us to the fan. I'm a big fan of this block, and it may seem out of place here with random things, but if we give it a redstone source and then throw a block in front of it, it's going to push that block along the ground as if it is a fan blowing the items. But if I stand in front of it, it doesn't push me, doesn't affect me at all. I'm totally safe. Now, like I said, this seems more like a redstone component, except when you consider it, this really only is to change water sources. You know, you don't need water streams anymore, but you have conveyor belts now. So this really is kind of useless. It's more of a prank block, a gimmicky block. So I'd really like to see what you guys end up, and guys and gals, we're inclusive, guys and gals, end up doing with this. And eventually I'll probably put an animated texture on the front as well, so that the blades spin around. Which brings us to the final two items of the entire mod, which both help you while exploring oceans. The first one is a rare non-craftable armor piece called flippers. Now, these flippers can be found in ocean ruins, not ocean ruins, sunken ships, shipwrecks, and buried treasure. Maybe I'll add it to ocean ruins. Leave some comments down below if you'd like to see it in ocean ruins, or if not in ocean ruins, leave some comments and let me know why, because honestly, they're pretty common. If you just look through a couple of shipwrecks, it's really not that hard. But if I go ahead and slap these on, you'll notice I actually get slowness because I'm not in the water yet. But as soon as I jump in the water, I'm gonna get Dolphin's Grace. And that Dolphin's Grace effect is really gonna allow me to swim quite fast. In fact, even faster than a boat. So before you get Depth Strider 3, these flippers are going to be really good. And even though you can put Depth Strider 3 on these flippers, you might consider replacing them for just standard boots, because they have literally no defense and little to no durability. So if you take any damage while wearing these flippers, they're gonna break really quickly, but they don't take any damage while you're swimming around. So as long as you're very careful and you don't let anyone attack you while wearing flippers, then in theory, you only ever need just one pair. So let's say that you're swimming around and for some reason you just don't feel like going back up to get some oxygen. Or you've swum out and you've seen yourself a really nice shipwreck that you'd like to get to, which I know you guys probably see the portal. Not nearly as many of you probably see the shipwreck, but I'm out of oxygen. So I switch to my pony bottle really quick and I can start sucking oxygen from it. It's a really nice lifeline, gives you some extra time to get down here and check these chests. I've actually already emptied this because this is not the first time I've recorded this. But once it runs out, you're going to start taking damage once again, and the top is going to turn red. Now, if I hover over this, it says sneak to refill, but if I drop down here and, try to do that, it's not going to work. I need to be above ground. I need to be above, well, not above ground, above water. So if you run out of air in your pony bottle, you're unfortunately going to have to find the nearest land, go back to it, and crouch in order to fill your pony bottle back up. Now here we are. Now I might change this eventually one day so that you can fill it back up if you're standing in bubble columns as well, the same way you can kind of breathe while you're in bubble columns, but I might not. We will see. My thought process is if you open it up underwater to try and let air in, even if you're in a bubble column, you're still gonna get water in there, and that just doesn't seem like it works. So that might not be a thing. It might. We'll see. So here we are after nearly 2 hours of just talking about all the stuff. We still haven't actually covered everything, and I mean everything that's in the mod. There's still a few things that I kind of left off the list because it was niche, or it just went with other stuff and I felt like I didn't need to talk about it, but that's most things. It took a while. This mod is made for 1.20.1 and is currently in Mcreator version 2023.4 and is released for, I think, Forge 1.17, although I'm not entirely sure on the Java and Forge version. I know it's Minecraft 1.20.1 and Mcreator 2023.4. This is release A.C.E.S MC Overhaul beta version 1.0.2, which is going to come out right alongside this video. So if you're watching this video, that is might be the newest version to the mod. If not, check out my YouTube channel. All of the new versions should have a full item list and addition to tutorials and whatnot on my YouTube channel. At least I want to start posting those on there, so if I didn't, yell at me. And I really hope you guys enjoy the mod. If you find any bugs, let me know. I've got a bug form. And if you find any bugs with the bug form, you know, let me know. It's a work in progress. It's all a work in progress. I love this game, and I had some great ideas I wanted to implement. So if you have any ideas, please feel free to share them. Let me know your favorite parts of the mod. Tell me stories of you playing with it. And until next time, I'll see you folks later.